I was trying to force feed him some of his sick medication.
Hi everyone, welcome to the Gamasutra Twitch channel. My name is Brian Francis. I am a contributing editor at Gamasutra.com. Alex, before I shrink your window so we can look at the dogs, who are you and why should we care?
You shouldn't care because I'm not a puppy. I am Alex Warrow, an editor here at Gamasutra.com, and today we are joined by some very, very special guests, special guests and special friends. Why don't you tell folks who you are and what you do?
Hey, I'm Wonder. I'm the marketing manager over here at Runic, and this is Danger, and this is Falcor.
Nice.
Hi, my name is Patrick Blank. I'm the game director and the lead level designer.
Nice. Real quick, sorry, I just need to address Patrick Wonder real quick. I did briefly catch an echo of our voices out of your speakers, so you may need to dial that down a wee bit. But
Yes.
yeah, but in the meantime, we are here playing Hob. Hob is the latest game from Runic Games, makers of Torchlight and Torchlight 2. It is a single-player, kind of Zelda-inspired like adventure where you play as this little robot person with a metal sword. Well, I guess all swords are metal, but like it's not very bladey. It's kind of like a metal stick down there and a giant hand. Actually, that's kind of all I can say about the game because I've only just begun my adventure, made it past the tutorial stuff, and I actually don't know what my overall big objective is. So, Patrick, would you like to introduce your game?
Sure. Yeah, this is our third game. It's a third-person action adventure game that's heavily based on world exploration, and we don't use any dialogue for the quest in the game. There's no text or anything like that, so it's up to the player to kind of run around, figure out what's happening and what they need to do. So we use a lot of world environmental storytelling for the player to hint of what's happened and what is happening and what needs to happen. So it's very much a game where you can move at your own pace. We don't have our hand on you, pushing you through with a lot of heavily scripted events or anything like that. It's a very chill game just to kind of explore and, kind of go at your own pace and discover what's happening and what you can do with your character and how you can upgrade your character. And
Yeah. So I wonder, for the benefit of our audience, could you maybe walk us through the story of this game's development? Because it's been a while since Runic has put out a game. I think Torchlight 2 came out in 2012, so about 5 years ago-ish. And that was a very different game. So I kind of wonder, like how did this game come to be, and what does its development story look like?
yeah, it's been a long time. We actually started on a different project after Torchlight 2, and we worked on that for maybe about a year or so, and that things just weren't panning out with that.
We also got derailed hard by the Torchlight 2 PC or Mac port. Just took us like a year.
Yeah, ports always take longer than you think. So, yeah, just these things were happening with the other project and the ports and stuff, and so we kind of just stopped and reevaluated what we were doing, what we wanted to be doing, and that's kind of where the early ideas for Hob started. And early on, Hob was a much different game. It was still like the same camera perspective. You're still running around exploring the world, but because we had just come off of Torchlight games, wanted to do randomized levels. So it was much smaller world, smaller game. But in trying to figure out what the identity was, what was the big thing that kind of would sell Hob, we changed to this kind of world-shifting thing with the game that kind of made the development shift because it wouldn't have worked with where we were heading. Where the game changed and became a much bigger game. And we've been just constantly evaluating how we can make that bigger and better all these years, and you can kind of see it if you look back at all the first PAX demos we did, where it was then and where it's come now, and kind of how it's just slowly evolved and into what it is now.
Yeah, right on. So there's a lot to unpack there. I really want to dig into the level design and the notion of having this world that is interconnected and can be put back together in a way. Before we get into that, I want to touch on that thing you just said about finding something that would, like, finding a good hook for the game, something that would make it stand out, that would sort of sell it in a way beyond what you had originally. I kind of want to know why you felt this particular concept, this idea of I guess an action adventure 3D platformer told without words or any kind of narrative at all that I can tell, and sort of like it's all about environmental storytelling and platforming and puzzle solving, with a really interesting aesthetic. Why did you think that was the way to go in terms of like how to sell this game in 2017 or whenever you would hope to get it out?
Yeah. Well, we hoped to get out much earlier. But I think initially it was a cool idea. The way we shift the world now also was a little bit different when we first started, and it was much crazier, and we realized this is too much work.
Mm-hmm.
So let's cut back on that. So what we have now, we have a lot of it. It's still really big events and very cool. I think it's what we ended up on is much better for the game overall. But as far as the no dialogue, we kind of thought that, I think we were a bit naive, and we thought coming off of Torchlight 2 with all the dialogue and localization and quest text that like it would somehow be easier. What we discovered is no, it's 100 times more difficult to tell the story, obviously, without that.
Mm-hmm. We should really dig into that.
It's kind of evolved to be one of the big things that there is a sense of loneliness in this world, and it is really up to the player to kind of explore and find things. And I think all those different pieces, it took a while, but they started to just complement each other. And in the end, that's what we had. So I think we made the right decisions there to have our own game and our own feel, and I think we've succeeded there. So I'm glad we stuck with our guns on that.
Yeah, so let's get into those challenges for a sec, because what you said, that I would think the same thing naively. I would think like, well, it costs a lot to like pay writers, pay localizers, deal with all like figuring out how to tell stories through words and cutscenes. Why not try? Wouldn't it just be cheaper and more effective and more affecting to just have a silent, wordless, story told through environments and emotions? What kind of practical challenges did you face when you sort of first set out to accomplish that?
It was, just coming down, looking at individual scenes. How do we convey what's happening here? How are we trying to push the player through? What do we want them to feel here? What do we want to hint at is the overarching goal. And I think we're more on the extreme side of subtle with a lot of those. It's interesting reading some of the forums now, seeing how people are picking up on it once they've gone through the entire game and looking back. But I think for other people going through the first time, they might not notice certain things that we try to wrap around at different parts of the game. But a lot of the stuff that's going around now, it's interesting. We hear people say, "Oh, I don't know what's happening. I don't know what I should be doing." And then when you ask them, "What do you think's happening?" they totally nail it. They don't realize they're getting it, but they are getting it. And then again, through the progression, they start to piece things together again.
Why do you think then why would you guess they don't know that they're getting it? Like, why do you think they might feel confused? Is it a question of expectations or of design or something else?
I think because, it's a big puzzle and we're only giving you little pieces at a time. And once they get a section complete, it just might click. It's like sometimes in game development, when you ask somebody, their playtest, and you ask them what they don't like about it, they might tell you something about what they don't like about it, but what they actually mean isn't the direct thing they said they don't like. It might be something else affecting that.
Yeah.
With people playing through the game.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. I'd love to get some examples for our any students or game devs who are watching. Like, what's an example of how you would convey a feeling or an emotion without words, like through level design or through atmosphere? And if that's too nebulous, like I'm curious to know about how you approach the challenge of signposting this game. Like, how do you, in a practical sense, tell players where to go and what to do without being able to give them quest text, basically?
Yeah, well, I mean, just game design tricks like, painting a path a certain way. We have creatures that have movement on them that are trying to catch your eye to lead you over somewhere, or birds are flying in a particular direction to kind of hint of going into this direction. We've even got a couple cases where people, we don't really put up a lot of walls, so if people are heading in a different direction, we want you to head in certain spots. We will trigger something lie back in the other direction, just kind of lead your eye. We do just the way some of the levels are decorated, kind of do that as well. We have these kind of vista points in the game where you can kind of find a little glowy thing and you can go and sit down or lean and the camera will pan and show you something. Mm-hmm. It's shadowing something that could be a pickup or a path or something you'll get to, anywhere from a few minutes to an hour later. It's just kind of foreshadowing some of that to make you think about it. And then when you do get there, hopefully with what you saw, you recognize and it clicks, and then you can kind of get some spatial awareness of where you are in the world. It's taken a long time to figure that out and rearrange the world and the levels and different configurations to make that fit as well as it does. But I think we did a pretty good job with that.
Yeah, I wonder, and this is kind of a trivial question, but it's just stuck in my mind. What is the weirdest thing you miss about having explicit narrative, story, quest text, that kind of thing? Like, so far what you said sounds like relatively foreseeable, like without text you have to really be careful about how you highlight things and how you design levels, but like what was the weirdest thing that you missed about being able to just write, hey, do this, go here?
Well, you get in a pattern of when you're making the game and you play test it yourself, your own levels, you always play it a certain way. And then when you hand the control to somebody else and they play it a different way, it's like your mind's blown, like, what? Why are you doing that? It can be frustrating seeing somebody else get lost because they missed the cues that you put in there. Whereas, when you have quest or dialogue or you're doing a heavily populated, like, breadcrumbing on a map, it's a lot easier because they just have to open that up. But us, we're a little more sparse with that because we want people to explore. And I think kind of a motto I've had is to find the right path. You need to get off the path. And I think we've done that to certain levels of success. We have a few points where definitely, it's up to the player. We kind of pull things away and let you figure out what to do next before we kind of give you a hint that you're on the right path. And again, with quest texts and dialogue, you can call out certain things. Oh, go over by this point of interest and go south of that. So it does make things a lot easier. They can check quest logs. Because we don't have that, we're relying on a lot of the environment. We do have a world map. We're relying on people to be able to figure out where they are and where they've been. It's not always successful.
Yeah.
And that's fair that we don't hit you over the head with things, but that's just kind of the route we chose to take with this.
Yeah, and we'll get to level design in a minute. I don't want to let that go, but like, it is so striking to see a studio like Runic put out a game that on its face does not attempt to grab the player. Like, it doesn't say, you are the hero, save the world. It's just like, here's a game we made, it's pretty, here's this cute character, go play. And I kind of want to know, like, how did you guys ever face the challenge of how to get players to care about this world and this character? And if so, how did you try to address that?
Yeah, it's huge, right? Because of the stuff we talked about, we don't have a lot of those advantages, or we've chosen not to take a lot of those advantages. I think it's just, there's a lot of people here who like that play a game. Myself, I turn off mini maps, I turn off quest markers.
Oh yeah.
That there's certainly other experiences that have influenced us in that, and I think calling out like where, I don't want to get into specific examples of that, but that's something we really wanted to do and we wanted to embrace. I kind of zoned out there. Sorry, what was the...
No, but on a marketing perspective, I think we have kind of had to approach it as like, we can't just expect the people who loved Torchlight 2 to automatically love Hob 2, right? Like, so we have to find kind of like a new audience for this game. We have to find, the audience that is more interested in a more thoughtful, very subtle progression that does have story elements, but they're not going to be overwhelming. That's not like high fantasy, but really we started the game with like such a massive story and what is in order to even have like the basis of the world. And I think what players are seeing is you're seeing kind of like the tip of the iceberg, but we had to like build the rest of it to make this make sense. And so for us, going to shows and just like and also something that we also did on Hob that we didn't do on Torchlight 2 was we had we never did like a formal beta, but we had playtesters in the office constantly for months. And that's something that we didn't do with Torchlight 2. We didn't really have many playtesters. And then we did like one beta, and we got amazing feedback and shipped from there. But this has been different. It's been like much more of a slow burn with like getting people's feedback.
Yeah, and sorry, lack of sleep. But to get back to your question, we've discovered there are certain characters in the game, and these aren't characters that give you dialogue, but we've seen what people kind of grasp to with those certain characters that you discover throughout, and so a lot of that is, okay, well, let's put more of this type of character in, because people really like that, and we like showing the interaction between the player and these characters and kind of how they're working together. So that's a way to kind of get you to care about that, so that when you see that character again, you're really excited to see them again. And there's certain spots in the game where we do certain things. I don't want to do any spoilers, but like the beginning, I think it's interesting watching the recent streams where people are playing at the beginning and the thing happens, and watching how shocked they are because they're not expecting it.
Yeah.
Because we've thrown you into this really pretty game, and your character feels really great to move around, and they're interesting to look at, and it's kind of cute. And then we kind of slap you in the face to let you know, no, this is something different.
It's been exciting to see people's reactions and be like, well, that was unexpected. We saw a streamer cry yesterday.
Yeah.
Oh, no.
But because just in that short time in the intro, they were attached to their character and the other character you're with. And because of the events that happened and what that character did, the sacrifice for your character, there's already like an initial bond. So we do certain things like that throughout the game to kind of keep you invested in those key characters.
Yeah, real quick, I want to go back. Patrick, you mentioned that you like to play games by turning off the minimap and just trying to like immerse yourself, it sounds like, in the world as much as possible. Given your experience as a game designer and as a level designer, I kind of want to pick your brain on that. Like, why do you find that your preferred way to play games, and how does that shape the way you in turn design games?
I think, with recent games, there's too much hand-holding for my personal taste. I think we just overdo it, where there's so much stuff on the HUD that you can't just focus on the game. Something's always pulling your attention away from you being able to feel like you're there and you choose what you want your attention to go to. So yeah, if I can, I immediately turn off everything on the HUD as much as possible, and I just like to explore like most games. When you first walk outside and they give you a quest marker, I turn around and go in the opposite direction.
Yeah, I call that BioShock gameplay.
Brian, so how are you faring in this strange new world? I've already seen parts of this game that I haven't yet unlocked. I'm a little. Are you on a quest?
I think the best way I've described my experience forward is kind of like go and make things happen. It's kind of like, it's similar to how Halo is like, your enemy is like wherever the enemy is, that's the way you're supposed to go. In this game, it's wherever I can interact with things and make sort of shape the world in any way, like find a chest, like make this giant walker move. That's the way I get the vibe. Unfortunately, I don't know where I'm supposed to go after I beat this boss type character, so I'm feeling real awkward, asking for help on the stream. Can't figure out if that light's supposed to be anything.
Patrick, do you have any tips for Bryant?
I would say get back on the walker and look for somewhere that you could possibly park it that looks like it's meant to be parked.
Yeah, I think I saw something like that.
That is how I navigate parking lot.
Pro tip.
Getting a tiny echo from your guys' end.
Okay.
And there's nothing I love more than hearing the sound of my own voice, so it's fantastic. It's we keep skirting around it because there's sort of like broader topics I keep wanting to hit. But Patrick, we should definitely dig into level design. I mean, you self-describe as a lead level designer and a game director on this, and I want to know how your experience as a level designer shaped the design of this game and your approach to making it. And then I want to know about. Well, let's just start there. So how has your experience as a level designer shaped the way this game was sort of directed and designed?
Fix this echo thing.
I think after the Torchlight games, because those levels were heavily randomized and we were making smaller like chunks, kind of stitched together at the end, you didn't get as a level designer, you didn't know what your chunk was going to be next to, so you couldn't design a bigger experience. We did have a few areas that we called the passes in Torchlight 2 that were between the big overworlds where we did get to do that. We customized them more. They were still randomized. And those ended up being some of the cooler areas, I think, because we were able to totally craft that area and didn't have to worry about not knowing how it was going to be configured. So that was a big factor when we started Hob. I wanted to make sure that we were building this big world and that we knew what was going to be connected to what so that it could support each other and so that it could have good flow. That was a huge factor. We initially had a lot more distinct areas planned for Hob and how they all kind of played off of each other, but we cut that back at some point. And it's just really important with a game like this exploration game, to know where you kind of want to, like, in a cone, funnel the player, but not so fine-tuned that it's too linear, but at least let them know, like, oh, if you go do this requires electricity, so there you have to go fix electrical area first so that you can come back to it. And so it all kind of weaves throughout each other, so the more you play, the more you unlock the world, the more shortcuts you unlock so you can go back and forth, and the more the areas complement each other. And that's just would have been too difficult doing if we were randomizing it too much. So that was a big factor for why we decided to really go this route with Hob.
While I have you here, can I ask you real quick? Dang it, more echo. So you have this space right here, where, like, that sort of exemplifies the curves in the level design a lot. How come these curves exist, and, like, how do you find them as a game designer helpful to get you, like, to get your, like, to make things happen and get the player to understand things?
Well, technically they exist because early on we were making a very, very small subset of art that we're going to use everywhere. So we had just a few shapes, and as we were building with them, we just came up with different configurations. That particular area was just to kind of make it feel a little bit arena-ish with the shaman character that is there when you first go there.
Yeah.
You actually can come back there later when you have a different ability and get up to the top of those ruins to get a different item.
Right on.
Well, I able to explain. Well, I mean, they were also showing up in some of the exploration areas. I was earlier, like, there was instead of a place where, you know, another game might have used a straight line, there was, like, kind of a curve around this space. Is there a kind of an artistic sense, or is it, like, do you think players respond to it better?
I think it makes it feel like a contained space, again, in an arena.
Mm-hmm.
For that particular monster that was there, he uses those 3 different warp pads to move back and forth.
Right.
So the way that that's configured, it also allows you to get up to those 3 points to destroy the pillars he uses to teleport. But no, it was just trying to, I think that made it feel like it's also the corner of the electrical area, and I think it made it feel like its own little subset by using those assets that way.
Yeah, and I think maybe something Brian was kind of like brushing up against there is like just the design of everything, you know, the circular patterns, the kind of branching paths the metal takes. It makes everything, every mechanical aspect of this world seem very organic in a way that is sort of very striking from a stylistic point of view.
It's a weird mix, right?
Yeah, it's cool though.
It's pretty cool though, yeah.
And it stands out. So Patrick, you mentioned that there had been earlier plans to have a much more a greater diversity of environments. I kind of wanted just to circle back and say, like, as a team, like, why did you make the decision to cut back on that? Was it for
scope.
Design purpose? Scope? Okay.
Yeah, it was purely scope. We just, you know, when you start, it's pie in the sky, right? And we had so much cool concept art for these areas too, and we actually started prototyping and grayboxing a lot of them. But in the end, just because the game was going through so many changes, it was just too much to do, and we had to cut down and focus on the areas we thought we could do more justice to in the time we had.
Yeah, totally. First of all, I just for my own edification, your career in the industry, has it been mostly around level design, or have you done a variety of different roles?
Well, I wear lots of hats here. Most of us do. Mm-hmm. Which is great about a smaller team. But no, I've always been a level designer. I did a little bit of art and some previous games, but always level design.
So I just kind of want to know, just for my own personal satisfaction, what is it about level design that you find so satisfying?
I love it. I was always the kid sitting in the back of the classroom drawing. Like, I didn't realize what I was doing then, but I was drawing these little levels, and the guys would go through, and this would happen there, and this would happen here. Playing with Legos as a kid, I always made my own dioramas out in the backyard of like battlefields and buildings and stuff like that. And then when I just it hit me one day, what I could do when some mod tools were out that I discovered, and I started playing with it, and my mind was blown. Like, I can control this, I can make whatever I want, I can control the experience, and it's just something I fell in love with, and I still love it.
Nice.
It's just a lot of fun.
Quick comment from the chat. Ragged Scribe says they're sold on this game from the looks alone, and they're excited to play a game that purposefully avoids explicit narrative as well. So I think your vibes sold that person. That's for sure.
Good. Yes. More comments about sales, please. And we should touch on that later because I want to know. I want to just get your thoughts on like where the game industry in 2017 is at, especially since Runic has been working very hard but has not put out a game in a while. So it's a much different market than it was when Torchlight 2 came out. Although again, you had later releases on different platforms. So. But like in terms of level design, I kind of want to circle back to that because I glanced over your prior work and what you've done in the industry, and I see a lot of level design work, and but I don't see a lot of like, for lack of a better term, like puzzle design. And something that struck me just in the first hour or two of Hob is there are a lot of environmental puzzles. There's pushing things around and jumping around and finding buttons to hit. And I kind of wanted to get a sense, if you can, about what it's like to try and design a puzzle like that so that it's satisfying to solve but approachable for a wide variety of players.
Oh, man. It is difficult.
Seems hard.
It is. I don't think... in the end, the game you're playing, it was me and another level designer, Rick Leslie, making all of the levels. And there's a lot of levels. And I don't think either of us really realized how much we were making puzzle-wise, because we were just, let's put something here, and it's just been building and building. And then I've heard that comment a lot lately, and it just kind of dawned on me, like, oh, man, yeah, we actually did put a lot of puzzles big and small everywhere. I just didn't realize we did that much. But it's really difficult to just in general come up with good puzzles, depending on what, if you're using the player mechanics or you're using the environment to kind of set those up. And we do both of those, obviously. But it's challenging you don't want to make something so insanely difficult that it's a stop point for certain players. It's a turnoff if they've been enjoying the game otherwise. So it's been hard finding that balance. And then you throw in like our world shifting mechanic to that, and that's something we always want to showcase. So there's always a puzzle based around that, like the one he just completed.
Yeah.
And that's the first world shifting you see in the game right there. So that's kind of a bit of a teaser, but it's difficult. We've refined a lot of the puzzles. We've gone over them for years now, just kind of changing certain things here and there. And some of them cater to the specific area you're in as well, with its electricity or water, and it uses those elements. I definitely enjoy playing games with puzzles, and I enjoy making them to a certain point. But yeah, to keep the creative juices flowing with those is difficult sometimes when you have a lot to do.
If you could go back in time to you at the start of the project, what advice would you give yourself? I guess about anything, but specifically about designing good puzzles.
Hire a really experienced puzzle creator.
Oh yeah, there should be more job listings for puzzle masters. I feel like that kind of.
I think a lot of ours is based around the environment too, and environmental navigation, which is cool. It's not just a straight stand here and figure this out and twist the thing the right way. We certainly have a couple of those, but we try to use elements of the environment as much as possible so that it feels a little more unique to Hob.
Yeah, so let's get into it. Let's get into this world shifting thing, which I also just saw for the first time. Although you see little bits of it throughout, even from the very first moments of the game. But it's a core selling point of the game, the idea that the world will shift and change in major ways based on your actions. And I kind of want to know, as one of the chief architects of this world, how did you build it? What are the practical challenges of building a game that can be entirely reconfigured? And it almost seems like you would have to think through what it is intended to be and then work backwards from there to change the world up so that it can be then put back into place by the player. Is that on point or no?
Yeah, it is, and a lot of it comes down to just the tools you have, specifically the way the art is built. We were really smart because I think coming off of Torchlight 2, the art had to be built a certain way. Excuse me, to be modular so that we could quickly build things, and that's kind of carried over with our artist when we started Hob. We knew we needed to have all these puzzle pieces. Everything needed to fit together so that we could do this. I hope you're not. You should be able to run under that.
There we go.
There you go. Okay. But when we were talking about how do we want the world to feel different. We want the world to be a huge factor. How are we going to do this? We came up with several different ways that we could do shifting and puzzle pieces and rotations and stuff like that. And we wanted to go for more of the bigger moments to kind of sell that. And those are difficult to do. You want the player. Another goal is always make the player feel small. You want the world to feel huge. And figuring out where we can do that and where those fit into the world. There are certainly several that are showcases because they're rather large. But then you want them to be a thing throughout, so you want to have smaller ones, and making those fit in with particular puzzles or sections that you complete, so it feels like a satisfying finish to an area. Those are usually something we identify early on in a level we're making, and so we know we'll build everything kind of around it to support it and to showcase it. And then it's just, again, with the pieces we have, it's pretty easy to lay out. But it comes in the details later of selling it, with the timing and the particles and the deco and the other things that are going off around it. But it's been a thing we've been evolving as we've been going through development to try to figure out better and easier ways to do it and how it can fit into the game more and more. It turns out I think it's something that people really love seeing, and it's one of the more satisfying elements of the game when you finish something that transforms.
Yeah, what it reminds me of is there's a level in a game called Dishonored 2 called Clockwork Mansion, and that level is it's a level that changes shape and it's very striking. And this entire game appears to work in a very similar fashion. I kind of want to get to the heart of that. Like when we talked to the designers on that game, they mentioned, designing the level so that it makes physical sense. So there's no trickery. Like, if a beam slides in and out, it actually is rendered at all times, either in or out. It's never just disappears into nothingness or clips into anything. Were you able and were you interested in achieving that level of weird physical fidelity in a game like this, even though the player doesn't often see it? Or did you have to use some level design tricks to get everything to interconnect just right?
A little bit of both. I think we definitely wanted everything to feel grounded and as real in this game as possible. So the elements do fit together really well, again, because of the way the art is made. That Dishonored level is nuts. It's gorgeous. And wow. I mean, that's awe-inspiring what they did with that level. They're going beyond just one transformation. They're doing all sorts of really neat stuff. But I think, we definitely wanted ours to feel grounded within the world, and so it's a bit of just having really solid art and tools to do that with. And then there is trickery here and there where we need it to happen, but it's also we want it to happen in real time in front of the player. We don't really do cutscenes when any of that happens. A lot of them people don't realize. You can run around on them when they're happening. I think most people feel like it's a cutscene, so they just stand still to watch it. But you can run around on those large things as they're shifting. So we didn't want to take control away too much or cut to a different camera and make it feel like it's not happening right in front of you. That was a pretty big goal of ours. Like when you see the forest area, an entire zone raise up in front of you, and then you can walk out on it. That's all real, and that was a goal from the beginning to be able to do that.
Yeah, and I bet it must have been tricky. First, let me say, given your praise for the Clockwork Mansion, if it means anything, this game feels like Clockwork Mansion on a grand scale. So it's
that's quite a compliment. Thank you.
I mean, it's remarkable to see what level designers and talented designers can do with 3D space and a good art style. And in this case, I want to know what the practical challenges were of dealing with this camera while trying to build an immense, interconnected 3D world the player is meant to jump and climb and leap around. It seems very tricky to.
It is. It was one of our biggest challenges. It was weird that we were stuck with the camera perspective. We knew we wanted to do that for the game, and we knew we wanted a jumping and platforming game. But to the level that we do has changed. We've gone more extreme, and the world got bigger. So honestly, the truth is, we just didn't plan for it very well, and we had to accommodate it as much as possible. So it's tricky. There are spots sometimes where there are a little bit of funky cameras with Geo in the world, but we do our best to kind of alleviate those and make sure we can get around them. The world shifting things are usually set up in a way so that it's not a factor when you see those. But again, because you are changing and building up space, that's not there previously. It is hard to make sure you've got everything balanced out so that the new configuration also isn't a nightmare for cameras or gameplay. But it all fits. Again, I keep going back to the art. The artists were really smart with how they made these pieces, and that's really what allowed us to do as much as we've done. So usually we start out a very simple block-out phase just to get the movements in the path. And then once we go in there, we usually do a deco pass, and then it's just a back and forth to make sure everything's gelling well with each other and there's no major conflicts with the new areas that have shifted. So
I have a question. I had a question.
Yes, Brian, go ahead.
I forgot my question. Now I remember. That's embarrassing. But I remember. Okay, so one of the most, I once heard a game critic argue about top-down games that there's a problem with them in that you spend so much time staring at the ground, right? Like we're here, we are following Hob on his adventure, and sometimes the camera, takes us to the right place. But this critic said that for games like strategy games, for games like Diablo or whatever, like this, dang it, I don't know what I expected. They said that you're essentially staring at a hard rock. So I'm kind of like, what do you think about that? And how do you make staring at a rock interesting and make it narrative rewarding? Also, I'm gonna be that guy again, and Echo came back.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it's because we have. Sorry, Brian, we're not sure how to fix the feedback issue here because we've got two, and our main audio engineer has stepped out.
Yeah,
no worries.
Anyway.
I'm so sorry. Yeah, because I think the sound is coming out of there, but it's going in there, so I don't know where. I can put you on headphones on this machine, and that might work, and turn that all the way down.
We can roll with it. It seems to come and go. So if you have any thoughts about making the ground interesting, I guess.
Yeah, well, we have some experience with that with the first two Torchlight games.
Yeah.
I think in Torchlight 2 we started to do it more, play with kind of not the player traversing more vertically, but at least hinting at that with drop-offs and depth in the dungeons. And again, a big goal for me with Hob early on was I want the player to feel small so that the world feels huge. So we do, even like here where you're seeing, we always make sure you can kind of see down, right? We do have a lot of verticality in Hob, and that was because myself and Rick, we just wanted, as level designers, we wanted to play with that, especially with the different types of navigation we have. So I think because of that, it naturally, the levels kind of naturally build out this depth that kind of breaks up the ground, so you're not always staring at the bottom of the ground. We certainly do certain camera pullouts and pans to show you certain things as well, and also with our vista points. So I think we've spread out throughout the game enough points where we're changing the shifting things to show you that, so that it doesn't feel like you're always looking at the ground, in combination with a lot of the depth that we're doing in the levels, especially outside. There's cliffs. We not only just show you decoration out there, but we actually show you parts of the world that you'll get to later. So we're hinting at that. So I think it's kind of the flow of the depth that we're doing and the verticality in Hob alleviates a lot of the feeling of staring at the ground.
Yeah, I think you're definitely right. I mean, that is that lends an atmosphere of, like you said, like depth, 3D space. The world always feels far beyond reach whenever I'm playing, and I honestly, I don't know. I can't conceive of how it will come together at the end because it seems so large. Speaking of large, the video game market these days is real big and real crowded. I kind of wanted to get your thoughts on what it's like to put out a game in 2017. I'm struck by the fact that Hob is $20, just like Torchlight 2 was 5 years ago, and that's a really compelling entry point into a really crowded market. But I can't imagine it's been easy, even this early in, to sort of get attention for the game and help it stand out when there's so much good stuff coming out.
Wonder.
I could just move back over. Yeah, that's been super challenging. Yeah. The landscape has changed a lot. I mean, we see the influencers and Twitch streamers as becoming like the new form of word of mouth. I wouldn't say journalism, but like when I get the PAX spreadsheet of like who is attending. Yeah, I remember the first time that we were like going back to PAX and announcing Hob, I was like, why are all these YouTube people on my press list? And that was just, obviously I know why they're there, but it was really astonishing to see the difference between, when we had done press 5 years ago versus now. And then you see, graphs about how many games release on Steam every day now compared to even a couple of years ago, it is so much harder to stand out. And we just tried to show as much as we could without giving away the story of the game. Tried to make any updates that we had for our fans be much more interactive and content rich. You can't just be like, here's a game, we're making it, it's cool. There's like, let's make a cosplay guide. What are people doing to like push the envelope? Especially on like, we're a small studio. We're like 24 people with contractors. So, and we don't have the biggest marketing budget. So trying to do more with less, trying to be more inventive and more creative and find more ways to get to those people and really, you get to them through the internet.
Yeah, we rely pretty heavily on word of mouth. So we just try to make the best game we can, something that stands out from everything else out there, and hope that people enjoy it and kind of spread the word about it.
Exactly, spreading the word. And that, coupled with just how important it was to build a new audience for Hob, to find the players who are like, this is the type of game I've been waiting for, right? They want like that sort of like Zelda puzzle platformer experience, and they want to be able to play like either at their computer or on the couch. So us going to shows was huge, and it was we went to the PAXs and Gamescoms, and it was so important because people who had maybe heard of our studio but had not played the Torchlight games became that new audience that we're building. We also noticed a huge like uptick in younger fans and more women being way more interested in Hob, and so that kind of helped us because otherwise I think it's so hard to dial in who your ideal gamer is. You're like people who like games, I guess, know. So, but it was really great to be able to know that great to know that you can still go to a show and like figure out who this game is really resonating with.
So that I want to dig into that in a second, but first, someone in chat, probably a fan, says something nice about the price. They say $20 feels very underpriced, and I think that's an interesting jumping off point. Like, if you can, how does Runic as a studio assign value to its work? It's such a weird, beautiful
thing, hard.
Right? The idea of like how much is this thing that we spent years of our life making worth?
Yeah, it's never a discussion what type of game. Do we want to make a $20 game or a $60 game? We always make the best game we can, and with Torchlight 2 and Hob, we made way bigger games than we anticipated on making. But there's something magic about the $20 price tag. We've just kind of felt like that's a good offer for what we've got. You're getting more value than what you're paying for, we believe, in the content that we're giving you.
Yeah.
But it's kind of a no-brainer, right? Like,
it feels good to kind of be true to our games are $20, and that honestly feels good for us as developers. Obviously, things are changing, and it's bizarre to receive feedback saying like this could be a $30 game, but I think there was also that like little bit of inherent risk with a new IP, where it's if $10 is the difference between early adoption and not. And then I think Marsh put it really well, our president, in the Reddit AMA the other day, and he said we want people to feel like they're getting more value than what they think $20 should buy them. Like, that's such a good feeling for everyone to be like you know, and then you can buy too.
That's interesting. Like the notion that you would convey an aspect of your studio's spirit or its philosophy through its price is something that makes a lot of sense, but it's not something we talk about very often. So something we do talk a lot about with other game developers is visibility. Is one of the best ways to get your particular type of game, your size of game, your price of game out in front of the audience who will appreciate it the most. I couldn't quite tell what worked best for you. Was it going through, like influencers, like people on YouTube and Twitch, or was it going to shows, or was it, Discord and Reddit? Like, what did you see the most success with in terms of attracting and cultivating an audience?
I'd say shows still continue to be huge for us in terms of marketing. That's the best place to just get the game right into the hands of the end users, the players, and we're not only trying to then make relationships with those players, be like, hey, here's, check back in our blog, we're putting things out constantly, and we're I mean, it sounds markety, but to like capture their emails, but really only because we know that we want to be able to tell them when the game is out, you know what I mean? Because at that point we didn't have a release date either. And it's so satisfying to just connect with people right there and get their unvarnished feedback. The internet, I mean, yeah, for sure. Facebook posts. We relied a lot more on YouTube this time around. We did so many dev diaries and trailers that we didn't ever do for Torchlight, with much higher quality. Really, really nice. There's so much backstory out there if anyone wants to look at. We partnered with PlayStation for almost every major blog post that we could. So anytime that we had a dev diary, we worked with them so that they would release it on their YouTube channel and we would release it on our YouTube channel just a little bit later, because then that just is an even bigger audience for us, of course. But, when we're trying to get information out without giving away the game, we can talk about making the game. So we talked about grass and combat and traversal and the fallen soldiers and, little hints of the backstory and how we make the world and the sound and the music. So, I think for us, those things of constantly trying to keep updates coming that were valuable. We're not trying to spam anyone or waste anyone's time. We're actually trying to show them more about the game and more about the world and develop that interest and sense of what we're making without, while avoiding spoilers and major story beats and things that we were trying. We kept so many things under wraps so hard, like every show. We do not talk about these things. It's like, don't talk about Fight Club every time we took Hob out. We don't talk about the opening. We don't talk about the ending. We don't talk about a couple major beats along the way. So, so in lieu of that, we focused a lot more on the development, and I think that helped us a lot. The PlayStation bumps, of course, with just their visibility with their audience was really helpful for us, because it is there's so many great games out and there's so much to play. There's so much content of everything, movies, TV. How do we keep up?
Yep.
I swear. I need one more person next to me if I'm caught up on Game of Thrones. No.
I'm just waiting for those books to finish. That's then I'll start watching Game of Thrones.
That's what I keep saying.
Go ahead. Sorry.
We lost.
No. Which question? Who should go first, Alex? No, I'm not lost.
Well,
I'm not lost,
I have
actually.
a follow-up. Let's just get this follow-up out of the way because it's directly related to that. I think... oh, no. What happened to it? Where did it go? Oh, no. Platform holders. It's always good to have a platform holder to help you with marketing if you can get that deal arranged. You talked a lot more about making the game this time around pre-release, and I kind of want to get your sense, since Runic has been around making games for I think nearly 10 years at this point, and it sounds like you both have been with the team for quite a while. I want to get a sense of, do you think it's the atmosphere around talking about game development has changed in the last decade? It feels like maybe people are more okay and more curious to know how they're made, but I also am sort of outside looking in, so I want to get your take on that kind of stuff.
I do. I think developers want to talk about it more, and I think fans definitely want to hear about it more. but there's still a little bit of, where you have to be careful about what you talk about and how people will perceive it. They're going with the recent thread of developers that were kind of giving up their tips and tricks on Twitter of some of the games. Was really cool to hear, and a lot of people, I think, appreciated that. But I think there's a little bit of backlash too from some fans that once they realize, how the cake is made, as they say, they don't really approve of the ingredients. So it's kind of a fine line.
Gluten-free?
Yeah, it's kind of a fine line and a balance. I mean, I always want to talk about development. I think there's also probably, I know there is a lot of misconceptions out there of what some fans think of how games are made and what developers are doing, and this lazy developers and all of this, and it's just not true because of bad information. And so I think as developers, we want to kind of squash that, and that's why we do want to talk about these things. But again, it's another balance of what we can and can't talk about, because you're afraid to be. If somebody takes it in a negative way, then you can be attacked for it, and if they don't really understand the process, then it's like, well, if you're not going to listen and try to understand the different perspectives, then it can kind of explode, I guess.
Yeah, I think you're right, and I'm glad things are changing. I mean, obviously, we think the art of game design is fascinating and very much worth talking about. That's why we do what we do. Bryant, I'm sorry I cut you off earlier. Do you have a question in mind you want to throw out this?
Wrap up? We're getting to the end of our stream. I wanted to throw this in. I got to ask this of the guys who were working on Songbringer. By guys, I mean one guy. What do you think? So you take this is going to jump back into sort of the game design stuff. You have this kind of Link to the Past-ish type game. There's this big sense of mystery, a big sense of figuring things out. Why do you think this is this kind of template for game design is a good place to jump off for game developers? Why? Essentially, I'm asking, why do you think Zelda is good? Because it's clearly that mode of game design has influenced this work so much. Why do you think it's stuck around and worth it, and still worth gambling your studio on a $20 game to borrow from its older ideas, even while that series is trying out new ideas?
Well, I mean, we had a lot of influences, and I honestly, you can see some of the ones we wear on our sleeve, but there are bigger ones for me personally than that one. But I think it's where we are in development and what we've, as developers, and what we've done in the past and what we felt we still wanted to explore and kind of put our own twist on. And that's what Hob is. We like these type of worlds. We like this type of combat. We like the figuring things out. Again, I go back to a lot of games today. I feel like hold your hands way too much, and that's a turnoff for me. Now I think maybe we went the extreme in the other direction, but it's what we wanted to do. We kind of had these different ideas of, okay, I really like this person likes this, and we also want to make a game that has these similar elements from this game and the atmosphere from this. Let's put our own spin on it. And so we didn't really, I don't think we really thought about the risk too much. It was like, hey, this sounds like a cool idea. Let's take a chance at it and see what we can do with it. And it's never at the beginning, or it hasn't been up to this point, is this going to be good for the market at this time, or where a game's going to be, or is this too weird by the time it comes out? It's just, hey, this sounds really awesome. We want to play this, so let's make it.
Right on. I have to congratulate you. In all the communication I've seen from the dev team about the inspirations for this game, including Ico and Shadow of the Colossus and Journey, and in this hour-long conversation we've had about no hand-holding and environmental storytelling, no one's mentioned Dark Souls. So that's huge. That's congratulations. We did it. And with that, I think we should probably.
I had to stop myself mentally once.
Dark Souls is a fantastic game. I've played every one and love it. It's just it's okay if we let that reference rest for a little while.
Hob the Dark Souls of.
You stop that. Stop that. No. Shut this down.
You said that, not us. Trademark.
It's the Gamasutra. It's the Gamasutra opinion, not the.
It's the Gamasutra pull quote now.
is said in a gravelly voice. All right. God, I'm having so much fun with this game right now that I don't want this to end. But sadly, I guess Alex is reminding me that we have other work to do, and I can't just.
You can go another 12 hours if you want, so you can finish it.
I still think you could use some sleep. You guys should maybe take a day off.
Oh,
Very
right?
tired. Yes,
He's
we
got-
all need it.
Everyone give a hand for these wonderful developers who clearly lost all the sleep trying to get us this game. You have been listening to the Gamasutra Twitch channel. I have been Gamasutra contributing editor Brian Francis. Alex, who have you been?
I am still, and for the foreseeable future, will remain Alex Warrow, an editor at Gamasutra.com.
Nice.
And once erstwhile Ginger.
Yeah,
Yeah,
long ago, maybe someday again.
long ago in a far off land. And could you two folks from Wounded Games just sign up for everyone? And if they have questions, not just about Hob, but about making games like Hob, where can they contact you?
I'm Patrick Blank, the game director and lead level designer, and
I'm Wonder, in charge of marketing here at Runic. And these are the office dogs.
Yeah.
We got Scout in here too. Scout, come here.
Yes.
There's Scout.
They're all
The
good
highlights of the
dogs.
street.
we're
There-
giving these away in the chat.
Yeah.
By the way,
There's a
No.
giveaway.
if go to the Steam forums, if you have questions, come to our forums, runitgames.com. We have a lot of us are answering questions right now.
Yeah,
and
jump into Discord. There's
Yep,
a lot
Discord.
of conversations going on there. Discord's been huge for us too. So
thank
I
you
forgot
to
mention
all
that.
the beta testers on Discord as well. They were a huge help.
Sweet.
Right on.
With that, we will, as much as I want to keep exploring, we will say goodbye.
Thanks, guys.
Bye.
Thanks, guys. Thanks for having us on.
Bye.